Hi, I'm Daniel Field. I'm the Curator of Ornithology at the Museum of Zoology. And this is Mill Road Cemetery, which is a really nice site for bird watching right in the city centre in Cambridge. I've got a song thrush singing right behind me here. Throughout the entire lockdown, I was lucky enough to live just around the corner of Mill Road Cemetery. So I've birded it quite regularly over the last year or so and seen over 50 species here over the course of the year. And in a typical morning, you can easily see about 20 species on a nice walk around Mill Road Cemetery. So let's see what we can find. A blackbird just went over, and there's one singing up at the top of this tree here. So now in the breeding season, blackbirds and song thrushes are kind of very easy to see. In the winter, this can be a good place for redwing. If there's a good berry crop on the holly bushes, for example. So last winter, there were often redwings around. We even had fieldfare pass through a couple of times. So these tall trees sometimes attract woodpeckers, both great spotted woodpecker and green woodpecker, which you can sometimes see hopping in amongst the gravestones, but usually when the grass is a little bit shorter, so it's easier for them to find insects. And in the summertime, those swifts are always flying around. It's a great place to come, especially right towards dusk, where you can see them gathering in big groups and sometimes flying very low right over your heads in the cemetery. There's one of the chipchaffs is still calling here, going. Occasionally, in spring migration, there have been willow warbler here as well, which of course look a lot like chipchaff, but their song is very different. Another sort of useful way to delineate between chipchaff and willow warbler is the behavior of the birds. So they're sort of behavioral field marks. So if you see one of these small leaf warblers and its tail's moving up and down constantly, that's more likely to be a chipchaff than a willow warbler. There are a few greenfinches around very close. Hopefully we'll be able to get a glimpse of one. Oh, there's one just flew low right along the path and flew into the U in front of us. There we go. You won't get a better look at a song thrush than that, perched right up in the middle on one of the tombstones. It's great. We'll see if it lets us get a little closer. Yeah, right here in the middle, this is the most open spot of the cemetery. I think there used to be a little church here. And this can be a good place to wait for a raptor to come over. I don't know if we'll be lucky enough to see one today. Certainly sparrowhawk is the most common raptor seen here. But in addition to that, there are buzzards relatively frequently, red kites now and then. Sometimes even falcons like kestrels and peregrine falcon will pass over. So this is the most likely part of the cemetery here with these nice coniferous trees to find species like gold crests. So because we're right in the middle of the city, there's some groups of house sparrows and starlings and feral pigeons that do very well right around here and also use the cemetery. So it can be a good place for warblers as well. So blackcaps bred right underneath that beautiful beech tree, that big purple beech tree at the back. Great tit coming in, calling right here. It looks like a young bird. So maybe we'll see its parents around as well. Great tit. Very vocal blackbird up in this plane tree. So right in the middle of a big flock of sparrows. There's a jackdaw going over. That's the first one that we've seen today. Quite a few sparrows around. Some of them are young, so this one perched here looks like a recently fledged bird. Seems like the sparrows have been doing pretty well. Agitated. song thrush concerned about the magpie, it sounds like. Wonder if the magpie is getting too close to its nest. Magpie seen off by the song thrush there. So this big holly over here, this was sort of the center of thrush activity in the winter. So we had those winter migrant redwings feasting on a good crop of holly berries in this tree, often attended also by blackbirds and song thrushes. Over here, this was a very active spot earlier in the spring because a pair of long-tailed tits actually made their nest right in the middle of this bramble. It's grown up too much now to actually see the nest, but it's a really amazing construction. I'm sure it's in there somewhere, made of things like moss and spider webs. It's amazing, and they seem to have raised at least 6 or 7 chicks that managed to fledge. And this edge here with the lime trees in the back and the horse chestnut here, oftentimes these trees have big flocks of finches in the winter. Goldfinches were really abundant this past winter. Nice to hear the wren singing here, even above the construction noise. That song is incredible. It's one of the most complex bird songs in all of nature. If you see a sonogram of the wren song, you see it's incredibly complicated. They're actually singing with both sides of their syrinx, the equivalent of their voice box, at the exact same time. So to make that incredibly fast pace, very complex song, they're really kind of doing an incredible amount of work in this amazingly coordinated way. And of course, this is a tiny, tiny songbird, just a few grams in mass, capable of generating this massive, really, really noisy sound. It is an incredible, incredible feat. Here's a dunnock singing right at the entrance to the cemetery here. So it's interesting just to be able to see year after year how kind of the use of this cemetery by different species of birds changes. I know back in the 70s, apparently there were tawny owls that actually bred here in the cemetery. They're gone now, unfortunately. But it is a nicely managed urban green space, so who knows what might move in to breed in future years.